Good afternoon. Good to see you all. What a wonderful occasion we have here today, and a real privilege to have the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. I know each of us have sought to address the tremendous needs in this region, and we've worked hard, and you all have been fully committed, and my office, of course, is fully committed to support you in every way that we can. But today is a very special day, an important day for all of us to have the Secretary come because of the priority and the concern that he has for this region. So, Mr. Secretary, thank you for your commitments. Thank you for your service to our country. Here's a man who has a great passion for people, and that's what drives him, and that's what I love and respect about you. So thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate you being with us.
I want to thank Congressman Pittenger for the kind invitation. We've been back and forth. I was supposed to come almost 6 months ago, and then we were hit by a bunch of hurricanes, and things happened to change the schedule. But I've been staying in contact with the congressman, who has been a steadfast advocate for this area, believe me, to make sure that appropriate federal aid comes here. And I feel a special kinship with this area, with Fayetteville, because my college roommate, Dr. Larry Harris, was from Fayetteville, and had an opportunity to come down here and visit a couple of times. I always got to hear everything there was to hear about Fort Bragg, but I have been quite impressed to see the resilience that's been demonstrated in this area after the hurricanes and the floods. It was about 17 months ago, but for the people who were impacted, it seems like yesterday. We recognize that. And recognize also that the system that exists can use some improvement, because it takes so long to get things done. And that's primarily because people who meant well have just layered things one on top of the next, and have made it very difficult to quickly and efficiently be able to get aid to people. I met earlier this week with Homeland Security Secretary Nielsen and with Administrator Brock Long for FEMA, and Energy Secretary Perry, to talk about what we could do between our agencies and some of the others, because there are actually 17 agencies that get involved in these things. It's a little bit too much, quite frankly, particularly if you're the person whose home has been affected, and you don't know exactly who you have to deal with, and if you deal with this one, then did that interfere with your ability to, it's just craziness. And we're fixing that, because we recognize that it's craziness. It doesn't do anybody any good. It's going to get fixed. But in the meantime, we've worked out some of the issues with the $236 million that had been advocated previously for this region. I think Congressman Pittenger will have some good news about some additional funds that have been allocated with alteration in the cap. So I think we're going to find a way to get this area taken care of, but I have been very impressed with the resilience that I've seen here, people able to very quickly move in themselves and mitigate the situation, and then say, whatever help you can give us, that's fine, but we're not waiting. I love that. That's the right attitude. But we want to fix it so that you don't even have to have that attitude, and that's one of the goals that we have.
Thank you.
Questions?
I'd be glad to respond to questions that you may have. I will say, to the point that the Secretary referred to, last night, or early this morning, in our budget that we approved, we were able to receive $125 million more for funding relative to the hurricanes for North Carolina. So, Mr. Secretary, is open for questions.
Yes, I'm Councilman Larry Wright here in the city of Fayetteville, District 7. My district was probably the hardest hit in Matthews. Hollywood Heights is one of the areas that I counseled. Had a meeting last night with about 50 of those residents. About 13 homes on the low end were hit, and they were devastated, mostly senior citizens. And it's been over a year now, and most of those have opted for a buyback program, and I've been kind of working to try to get them back to a quality of life. Most of them are 70, 80 years old. And it's heart-wrenching to see that they're still displaced even now. Just got out of that meeting and just got kind of heated. And so my question is, and you alluded to it, it takes so long. And I think the money has been allocated, money is coming down, but it's trickling, but the people that are suffering the most are those residents that just don't see it. And it'll be at least 2.5 to 3 years, it look like now, before they can even get that buyback money. So
Yes.
what's taking so long?
Well, I've been asking that same question, and probably irritating a lot of people by doing so, but we're going to stay on that. First of all, thank you for your service to the people, and thank you for representing them. I appreciate that. And we have found that the neighborhoods that have community organizations, that have people who get together and talk, do tend to get a little more attention, so I encourage that. The squeaky wheel does get the oil. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. But again, what we decided after our meeting on Monday is that we need to kind of scrap all these things that have been put in place before and start all over again. Because there are a lot of good elements in all the different agencies, but unless they're coordinated the right way, it just gets in people's way. And my suggestion is that we ask ourselves, what if it was us, or what if it was our family? What would we be doing? And I think that's the only way you can approach these situations. So do recognize that this administration understands that that is a big issue, and I'm not going to rest until we get it taken care of.
Questions from the media only, please.
Give a sense for when the CDBG disaster recovery money is going to be released. I think there's $35 million for Cumberland County and $70 million for Robinson County, and there's at least I think 200 people have applied for it.
Do I know the exact time of its release? I know that it has been approved, and the way that I'm kind of looking at things and the way that we're looking at it is we get that money into the hands of the state and local officials, and they will make the decisions on exactly how it's released from there. But that is the big push right now, and I think that is complete or almost complete.
Dr. Carson, you toured this facility here. This was put together by HUD money, the Hope 6 project here.
Yes.
And there's hope to revitalize Ruby Terrace, which is another housing area, long-time housing area.
Yes, I've
Your
seen.
thoughts walking around seeing the townhouses that were built with federal money?
Well, what's been done here, I think, is spectacular. I mean, anybody would like to live there. The facilities are beautiful. There's a salon. Are you kidding me? This is great. I said, can I move in here and get a haircut? This is great. No, but, and this was an area that's particularly set aside for the elderly. And it is my strong belief that as a humane society, we need to do everything we can to make sure that our elderly, experience comfort in their last years of life. And there's an old Chinese saying that says you can determine the morality of a society by how they take care of their elderly. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's a non-issue. What we do have to spend a little more time talking about are those individuals who find themselves in public assistance, who are not elderly, who are not disabled, but who seem to be stuck. And I think one of the reasons that a lot of people get stuck is because, you know, in Washington, we come up with these self-sufficiency programs and say, you know, you do this and you climb this ladder. And then as soon as they start climbing the ladder, we pull their support. Well, you know, everybody else is kind of looking and they say, I'm not going up that ladder. That doesn't make any sense. So in a way, we've sort of perpetuated that problem. There's a multi-agency council now that is looking at that issue and making sure that we ameliorate that problem so that we don't have that. We want to encourage people. And, you know, the definition of success is not how many people we get into federal aid situations, but how many we get out of it. And, you know, giving people hope, real hope. Once again, I personally believe that that's the reason that we're having an opioid crisis in our country, because there's so many people who just have lost hope. You know, they're looking for some relief. They're looking for something to fill in those areas of their lives. And we've got to start thinking about that. You know, we're a rich country, and we have a lot of very philanthropic people here. One of the things that we have not done well is marry the need to the resources. Need here, resources here, sometimes side by side, no ability to merge the two. We're working very hard on that with our Envision centers, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that.
Last question.
Secretary Carson, so how soon, again, you know, can this community expect to get those funds for the Hurricane Matthew recovery process?
As soon as possible. They've been okayed, and the people who are dispersing the funds have been notified that, you know, these kinds of delays are intolerable, and they need to be thinking about it as if it was them who was in need. But the problem, of course, has been the enormous amount of regulatory burden that sits there, particularly environmental stuff. And at some point, we just have to be able to say, look, let's exempt them from that, because there is no evidence that X, Y, and Z is going on. And that's the problem with bureaucracy. Bureaucrats, they sit there and they spend all the time concentrating on the rules and no time concentrating on what you're supposed to be doing. We're getting rid of that very rapidly at HUD. So I would say help is definitely on the way, and it's going to be coming a lot quicker than it would have been coming before.
One question for
Thank you,
Congressman,
guys.
please. One question for Congressman. Yeah, the 25th hour last night, we were able to avoid end the budget shutdown. How many more times are we going to kick the can down the road on keeping the government open?
Well, this past year, we passed for 2018 the appropriations, all 12 appropriations in the House. We're challenged in the Senate getting those appropriations for funding our government. That's the prudent way to manage these continuing resolutions and funding. It's not the right approach. And those of us who believe in good management of resources seek to pursue that. And I would defer your question to my colleagues in the United States Senate.
Thank you, guys.
Let me just thank the mayor for your leadership, and I commend to you, sir, that our office will be fully committed to you, to work with you. This is about people, and we're here to support you in every way we can, Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Did you want to say something? Let's hear from the mayor.
Just like to reiterate, had a great meeting today, and we'd like to thank the Secretary for putting Fayetteville on his list of priorities, and the Congressman for making all this happen. Truly, this has been a collaborative effort between federal, state, and local to try to get our citizens taken care of, and I just want to thank you and commend you all for all you're doing in that regard. I'd like to acknowledge other members of the City Council, Councilmember Larry Wright, Councilmember Williams, whose district this is, and Councilmember Waddell. But thank you all.
Thank you very much.